Hello and thank you for watching Red Red. Today I'm talking about a book that I think reputation well and truly precedes it, Piranesi, and by Susanna Clarke, which is a 2021 novel written in epistolary form that follows pretty much the events of Piranesi, who lives in a house and some shit goes down. I'm not going to say my final rating for the book, because I will say that there are some not really minor criticisms, but a couple of medium to major criticisms that I have for the book. But I wouldn't, I don't want to just make a video talking about reasons that I dislike a book, but because the reasons that I dislike this book I think are super interesting. But I'm going to talk about the things that I like about the setting. Pretty much TLDR, I think the book sort of falls flat in the last part, in the last third. I think that I don't like how the metaphor of the house was treated, and I'm surprised at how clear it is that this story should have been a video game. But anyway, I'll get to that. So 30 seconds on the plot. I'll try to be as fast as I can. Piranesi is a character living in a place called the House that has these like infinite halls that stretch on. No two halls are the same. They've got like statues and whatnot, and it's such an amazing world building setup. Like, I was really enjoying the start of the book. But anyway, on the plot. A couple of times a week, Piranesi meets with a person called the Other, who just sort of like interviews them, and they're trying to search for this great knowledge that is supposedly in the house. There's some shenanigans going on. There are lots of dead people in the house, like dead skeletons. Piranesi starts to find... Piranesi is keeping a journal entry, which is the letters that are the book. Pretty quickly you find out that more than likely before the book tells you, you find out that Piranesi is losing their memory, and that early pages are actually pages that they had already written on but had been kind of removed or destroyed or rubbed over. But I'll skip to the end. Basically, Piranesi is trapped in this house by a person named... Oh, frick, I wrote down the name because I couldn't remember. Kidderly, and kind of experimented on. A badass detective named Raphael comes in, saves Piranesi, brings him back to the normal world. The end. Yeah, I know I'm not really doing it any justice, but let me just say that really the first third of this book, the setup is so good. I really loved the setting of the house. I'm a big Borges stan, so anything relating to infinite, especially something infinite that the character lives in, I'm 100% down. And I find that the writing is really charming. I think that Clarke did a really good job in sort of conveying this character. Pretty much, the two biggest criticisms the couple of biggest criticisms that I have for this book is just that I don't really know how to describe this other than to just say that it feels like Clarke indulged in the metaphor for too long. And what I mean is that I was reading Ursula K. Le Guin's The Dispossessed, and extremely quickly you're going to realize that the two countries are sort of giant, like socialism versus capitalism. And I was just like, oh man, I really hope that Le Guin doesn't spend like 400 pages pretending that this is not what this is so that she can have this great reveal. Meanwhile, I've been sitting here this whole time thinking, when are you going to say anything interesting about this? Fortunately, Le Guin didn't do that, and I think within like 100 pages or 150 pages, she's actually just she's saying the words capitalism and socialism or communism. That's sort of what I feel like Piranesi did. I feel like the switch of the house as this sort of higher plane level where ancient gods lived that maybe don't have any trace of them anymore, because there's this excellent Piranesi is sort of bouncing ideas back and forth from this other figure called the Prophet, and there's this incredible switch of when you basically realize that the house is this prison for people who have been like captured and put into this sort of state of deep trauma by Kirili and the prophet before Kirili, and I thought that switch was such a amazing thing. You realize it pretty quickly though, like maybe about halfway through the book, you start to realize that's what's happening. And not only does the book stay with like pretending or indulging, you really just were like, oh, I wish you would do something sort of really, really interesting with this. But then there's just, there's the final confrontation, the video game boss battle at the end. The epilogue where Piranesi decides to leave, but the character, was it Patterson? Let me just take a look at the notes. No, James Ritter. James Ritter was another character who, like Piranesi, was trapped in the house, but has sort of not learned to function in society. So Piranesi brings him back to the house, which is a little bit of a weird, like, maybe I missed it. Maybe I'm thinking of this wrong. I don't really like that idea of, I don't like that idea because I don't like that, the house being this sort of idea for trauma, that there are like, some people who have sort of been in it for so long that we just have to leave them behind. Maybe it's an analogy for when people get to a certain stage of Alzheimer's, that you stop trying to constantly correct them, and you just sort of go like, hey, moment to moment, this person's either going to feel stupid for forgetting so many things, or I'm just going to make them feel happy because they're going to be forgetting things anyway. And in that degree, I will go back and say, I will retroactively say that I can understand the ending, but it still felt a bit like having your cake and eating it too in the end. So I don't know. That's the weakest point I have, and I can totally see that if you fell more in line with the former explanation, the one that I said is like Alzheimer's, then the ending really worked for you. And that's okay. I just getting onto my proclamation about being a video game. I've never come across a story that I felt so clearly should be in a different medium, and that medium should be a video game, because it just seems perfect for it, right? Like, you could think of video games sort of like Detention, where, or Little Nightmares, and maybe with an art style sort of like Celeste, where you're just going through different rooms, you're writing the journals, you're trying to pick up old journal plots, you kind of have to go and meet up with the other, and like I said, the ending with where it's going to flood was like a puzzle game boss battle. Yeah, and I don't know if the story would have been more impactful if it took as long as a game, because an idea I've been thinking about a lot recently is just about the value of books by the sheer fact that they are a book, because it's delayed gratification and it's a longer, it takes you longer to get a satisfying conclusion, and that is almost like compounded tenfold when you have video games that you play for like 10, 20, 50, 100 hours. But yeah, I would love to see this adapted into a video game. I think it would be so stunning, and it could just be super, super good. I do think that this book should be recommended reading for schools. I think this would be an excellent addition from a modern author. It would be great for analysis. It's so easy to read. Really, you can just burn it out in a day. Yeah, I think that's all I really wanted to say about Piranesi. The book still fell flat for me. I don't think I would reread it. And like the big kind of indulging in the metaphor and the ambiguity of the house as a metaphor. I didn't really like how Clarke executed that, but still a good book. And I would like to hear your thoughts, because I know that this book is pretty much unanimously loved. So yeah, thanks for watching Red. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you in the next video.